Folks, welcome back to another episode of Mayhem in the Midsouth. Today's episode, we're going to look at the murder on Muriel Court. Dr. Robert Sims was an information technology expert with the Department of Education. His wife, Helen, was a Sunday school teacher, church secretary at First Baptist Church there in Tallahassee, which I believe it was the largest church in the community. Now, they had 3 daughters. 2 of the girls attended the same high school, and the youngest daughter was in junior high. It's Saturday, October 22nd, 1966. The 2 oldest daughters are out babysitting for families who are attending the Florida State game. Florida State was playing Mississippi State that night. Now, the oldest of the 2 daughters, she returned back to the house first after the game was over. The parents of the children she was babysitting had returned. She gets to the house about 11:15 that night. She goes into the house, television sets on. She sees coffee cup, other items sitting in the living room near a chair. There's a board game, and it looks like somebody was in the process of putting all the pieces back in the box, but there's no one there. Now she goes finally to the parents' bedroom. She gets in the bedroom, she sees her dad. He's lying on top of the bed. Now, he's been blindfolded and shot once in the head. Now, on the carpet near the bed, she sees her mama. She's been tied up, blindfolded, shot twice in the head, once in her leg. Now, also on the floor and diagonal to the mother was her young sister, 12 years old. Now, she was still in her nightgown. She'd been shot in the head once, stabbed 6 times in the stomach area. Now, her parents were still alive. Her father would die later that night, and her mama, she hung on for 9 days in a coma, and then she passed as well. Now, the daughter, little Norma, she gets on the phone. She calls the Tallahassee Funeral Home Ambulance Service. Something terrible has happened. Please come. Now, the owner of that funeral home with that ambulance service, Mr. Beavis, him and his 16-year-old son, they show up. Now, they're able to untie the parents, and they're going to attempt to get them to a hospital. They call the police. Police make the scene. Sheriff's Department makes the scene. Then we have a little territorial battle between the 2 agencies over who's going to handle this case. Leon County Sheriff's Department and then Tallahassee Police Department. Now, the crime scene was not managed very well, according to the resource material. You had dozens and dozens of police officers tramping through the house. Allegedly, some of the police made them a pot of coffee there in the kitchen. Neighbors were allowed inside the house. Now, the problem that the Sheriff's Department had, since they finally won the jurisdictional battle, was that Tallahassee was a small town at that time and really didn't have violent crime. They really didn't know how to handle such a gruesome mass murder. Now, they did pretty well immediately roll out robbery as a motive, since there was all kinds of items sitting about the house, money and wallets and purses, whatever. So they knew that was not the reason for this killing. Now, the police checked the surrounding area. There was even a large pond there at the back of the house. They actually drained that to look for the murder weapon. Now, some of the suspects, one was the preacher there at the First Baptist Church. As the wife had been working there and she'd just quit a few days before the murders. But now he was dropped as a suspect because he also was the team chaplain for the Florida State Seminoles. So he was at the game, and the police were able to obtain footage from the game, and they could see him on the sidelines. So they knew it wasn't him. But the publicity from his name even coming up was so bad he had to resign his position as the preacher there at the church. Now, the police have a pretty good idea who did it. It was a young couple, a female living not too far from the victim's house, and she was a little strange. And her boyfriend was a little strange. Now, according to the crime scene investigation, after the bodies were examined by the coroner or medical examiner, I don't know exactly which one, body temperatures from the victims indicated that the killers had left the house not too long before the daughter got home, thank goodness. Now, there was a drainage ditch that ran behind the Sims home there at 641 Muriel Court. Now, they think that's how the killers got to the house. Now, when Leon County Sheriff's Department was calling around to other agencies to see if they had similar type crimes, a Kansas detective told them it sounded like the murder case they'd had to deal with of the Clutter family, which, of course, that case was featured in the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. That book had come out just a year earlier. Now, back to this couple that the police suspected. In fact, the late sheriff, he's pretty sure it was them. He just can't prove it. The female came to the authorities several times talking about the case, talking about being there. She'd say just enough to convince the police she was there, but not enough to charge them. In fact, allegedly she had told or asked the sheriff at the time that what would happen to her if she was to confess to having been there at the murder scene. And the sheriff told her, well, you'll go to prison. And then she didn't want to say anything else. I don't know if I wouldn't have maybe given a more politically correct answer, maybe mentioned to her that, well, if you cooperate, we might better do something for you. I sure would have told her whatever to get her to tell me her story. But the case is still unsolved, and I believe the police are right about who the suspects are, because the male suspect, from time to time, he likes to give little tidbits to the media. Now, of course, it could be he just wants the attention, but it also could be he enjoys the fact he got away with something. But as the old saying goes, there's no such thing as a perfect crime, just imperfect investigation.